morning to you all. It's my proud privilege to be able to speak here on the 28th IPSA Congress here at Seoul. I will be very brief and I will not read from my slides. I will just acquaint you first about the essential argument which I am going to articulate here, and then just go through the slides very quickly and give you an overview of them so that valuable time can be saved. Now, the title of my paper is Humanity in Peril in the Middle East, Need for a New Discourse on Human Security. Now, the starting point of my presentation is 7th October 2023, when that Hamas attack in Israel took place. I was then in England on a tour, traveling through the streets of London, sitting on the top of a running bus, when I saw a demonstration with placards in their hands. I didn't know what had happened the previous day. It was there that I came to know what had happened. Then I went to Scotland, and even in the Scottish papers, some of which I have cited in my paper which will be published here, I have cited certain reports which I collected from the papers of Scotland, like the Scotsman and the Times of Scotland. Now, my point is, the essential point is that whenever we look into a crisis like this, we tend to view it from a predominantly political perspective. And when we do this, the scale of analysis and the width of perception gets narrowed. So I am arguing in favor of a more comprehensive perspective where, apart from the political factor, legal, sociological, cultural, economic, environmental, psychological, and even philosophical factors should be interpolated into the framework of investigation. And in my paper, I have not exonerated anyone, neither Hamas nor Israel. My point is that, as you see, Newton's third law overtakes. Whenever there is an action, there will be an equal and opposite reaction. Sir Isaac Newton said this so many years ago. After the re-escalation of violence with that 7th October attack by Hamas, obviously it invited a reaction. It was an opposite reaction, but it was not equal. It was unequal. That is my final submission. Why? Because look at the way the ordinary civilians have been brutally massacred and butchered. Look at the way the children have been killed. Look at the way the entire domestic infrastructure has been annihilated. Here, I quoted a poem from Bashavi Fraser, who teaches in Edinburgh University and has been awarded CBE. Look at this poem. This is the solitary thing which I will possibly read out. They hold aloft their empty vessels of various sizes, clean and shining as they wait not for clamorous or importunate, but infinitely tired and gone. They have no dreams or aspirations. Their only wish is for the mercy of instant death, inflicted by an unconscionable enemy. But for now, they face the slow torture of inflicted starvation, their empty vessels shouting out loudly the word, powerless to intervene. Now, here in these two slides, I have provided some pictures of what the Hamas did. 7th October, just a few slides. Then, what I've already said, that I'm arguing in favor of a more comprehensive and humane policy. Now, my contention is that when statesmen formulate their war policy, they do so without any consideration for the ordinary human beings who are in no way associated with the war in a direct capacity. That is, there is always a distinction between combatants and non-combatants, but that has been brazenly flouted and repudiated. Today in Gaza we find the paradox of death in life. It's an existential crisis. We speak of life-threatening diseases, but here is life-threatening life because the people there are haunted by the hallucination of what they have seen in front of their eyes. And this is what leads me to the psychological and ethical underpinnings of this matter. And the statesmen, I don't think ethical or psychological considerations figure anywhere in the imagination of the statesman. This is my submission. Nobody takes into account the sufferings, the trauma, and the psychosomatic disorder of the victims, which the victims have to go through. And therefore, look at what, now I have produced pictures of what has been done to the poor innocent children. Now I'm arguing in favor of a more multidisciplinary approach to the matter where various variables need to be integrated into the framework of investigation, and another casualty has been international law, which has been reduced to what can be called the vanishing point of legal jurisprudence. In another slide, I will speak of this. And as my theoretical parameter, I've chosen human security, which was introduced by the UNDP in 1994, which clearly stated that the reference point should be at the human rather than national level. This is the focal point of my analysis. Human beings should be very much a part of the discourse. Now, there's no doubt that the first salvo was fired by Hamas. Nobody can contest that point. And I've also cited here the horrendous atrocities which the Hamas perpetrated. And I need not read them out. I think it is there for you to see. Which means that I'm not exonerating Hamas. And what is more important, that apart from killings and woundings, there were also cases of psychological distress, what is called PTSD. The people in Israel were gripped by depression, anxiety, physical and mental health consequences, psychosomatic disorder, where physical symptoms were worsened by psychological distress. Then came the retaliation, the retributive retaliation. Here my question is, do two wrongs make a right? Now, obviously nobody can contest, nobody can deny Israel's right to self-defense. But definitely there is a question mark over the justification of raising schools and hospitals to the ground and blocking aid. 2 days before I left for Seoul, I read in the newspaper the report of firing by Israel military on an unarmed, famished crowd running towards the relief aid workers to get a handful of food. This is what has been happening. And civilians, killing of civilians is morally indefensible and legally impermissible. Even the UN humanitarian chief has said, Martin Griffiths, that an entire population is deprived from the basic needs of survival. That is what human security, what does human security say? It enunciates the foundational requirements of a dignified life. And that is being repudiated. Present. There is malnutrition. There is starvation. The only kidney dialysis center at Gaza has been obliterated. Greta Thunberg, who was sailing in a boat named Conscience for distribution of some meager relief, has also been obstructed, and 25 bakeries have been closed down, which ran out of flour and cooking gas. So this leads us to another point as to what has international law then been reduced to. The Geneva Protocol has been violated. The Geneva Protocol of 1949. Even the additional protocols have been violated. The UN Charter has been violated. Look at Article 51, which permits collective self-defense as a defensive measure for repealing an attack. But it states that it must not be excessive. And I'll give you something very interesting. Here is the ruling by the Israeli Supreme Court. Look at this. You know all this, Article 19, Article 51, where indiscriminate attack on civilians has been totally prohibited. Leave that aside. Look at this. And look at the way what Israel has been doing to the 8 sites, which are opportunities for killing, and this is unprecedented, an ex-UN chief has said this. Look at this. Now the Israeli Supreme Court's ruling is that the right to attack a civilian directly participating in hostilities is more restrictive than the right to attack combatants. Innocent civilians must not be harmed, and identification of targets should be made only after thorough investigation and proper verification of facts. And harm done to innocent civilians is collateral damage, and it must stand the proportionality test before a judicial body. Look at how Israel has simply repudiated the ruling of its own apex court. Now I have 2 or 3 more slides and then I conclude. Okay. From trauma to anathema. Now, this trauma, the psychosomatic disorder, this can enkindle feelings of revenge in the hearts of the people who are the sufferers. And that can lead, the people of Gaza, to join Hamas or other military outfits, number 1. Secondly, even if this does not happen, it can create such a revulsion towards Israel that any future peace process will not succeed. You will not be able to move forward even an inch. And what will happen is that everybody will say no to this. Even the possibility of child terrorism cannot be ruled out. There is also the possibility of mothers killing their own children who are unable to bear the stress and strain. Only yesterday I was in one of the conference rooms. There was a presentation where the presenter said that a mother had killed 2 of her kids. Now I asked him whether that can happen in Gaza. He said, I'm not a psychologist. Well, one doesn't need to be a psychologist to say that this is a possibility that cannot be ruled out. And Hamas can capitalize on damaged psychology. Just 2 more minutes. My revered PhD supervisor, Dr. Shangyukta Bhattacharya, told me that, this is very interesting, that the Vietnam soldiers, US soldiers who fought the Vietnam War, were gripped with trauma, and their children were also, their children also displayed highly problematic emotional behavior. Now, since I have no time, I can go into this in detail, but no direct linkage has been traced. But while there is no deterministic linkage, it is absolutely indisputable that war enhances vulnerability. Now, her husband of my revered PhD supervisor, an eminent doctor, Dr. Niranjan Bhattacharya, told me that when we talk about trauma comes from 3 sources. Primary, when you see it directly; secondary, when you hear it from others; and tertiary, when supposing somebody is not an adult but listens to 2 people in a conversation about some dreadful incident, then he is also hit with trauma. And there are 2 reactions. Either you tend to escape or you become hostile and aggressive. The predominant instinct is to escape. But even if that be the case, the minuscule percentage cannot be ruled out. And therefore, there is every possibility of the festering wounds of the bleeding heart ultimately creating a gangrene. So my final slide is this. I refer to Lord Tennyson's lines: the war drums throbbed no longer, and the battle flags were furled in the Parliament of Man, in the Federation of the World. That is absolutely utopian. But what about the next 2 lines, where he speaks about world where the common sense of all shall hold a fretful realm in awe, and the kindly earth shall sleep lapped in universal law. But it is this common sense which the statesmen lack. Only yesterday, the former Secretary General, Mr. Bam Moon, I think, who delivered the keynote address, said that he tried to convert so many statesmen to his own way of thinking, but he failed. So common sense is not common. Voltaire said this long ago. Common sense is perhaps most uncommon. So here, what we need is that the statesmen need to sublimate their ego. Philosophical underpinnings of realistic statesmanship cannot be ruled out. So there is the need for the statesmen to make a reassessment of their priorities, and they should remember that if you sow the wind, you will reap the whirlwind. Thank you.
Anything? No? My dear colleagues, the floor is open for questions. Oh, before. James, you have the floor for...
Well, some comments.
Or some comments.
And I will need to stand up and keep brief here, because thanks for these, I might be the directors of the three other presenters, who I think put together a very nice, I would say, narrative about different aspects of human security. I will just show, this is I don't think it's the most recent, but a recent Guardian Weekly cover, and the title is this the death of international law? Just what we were talking about. And in fact, so this is a highly topical issue. Is there something